I think he'd respond to the level of, I think he says it. I think he would say, you have to be spiritually and emotionally and mentally behind whoever fucking wins.
Welcome, Arian Moayed, to the Sohile Ali Show. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today.
Nice to talk to you, Sahil.
It is. It's a huge honor. My mom and I were huge fans of yours, and especially on Succession, the HBO hit series. And I for one, would like to start out and greet you from Bloomington, Indiana, home of your alma mater, Indiana University, where you graduated in 2002. And I just wanted to ask you, what do you think of when you think back to your time at IU?
Well, the first thing I think of is that my dorm room did not look like yours does. There was no campus apartments that looked like that. So the first thing I think of is, why didn't I come at a time where apartments look like that? I loved Indiana University. I loved every moment there, and I loved spending time there, and met some of my closest and dearest friends, and started the nonprofit Waterwell at Indiana. I was honored a few years back to get like a young alumni award of some sort that was there, and both a niece and a nephew of mine have gone there now, and so yeah, I have a really soft spot for Bloomington, Indiana, and always will.
Fantastic, and I'm happy to hear that, and I hope your niece and nephew have had also good careers here as you did. And yeah, I guess that's a perfect segue. I wanted to hear kind of how your nonprofit theater company Waterwell started. As I understand it, you all created shortly after 9/11.
Kind of starting right before 9/11, to be honest
Okay.
with you. In the summer of 2001, Tom Ridgely, another Indiana University grad, and I really were focused in on making a company that was really ambitious and trying to kind of like better society through theater and art. And that's not something that we said, and even though that sounds like today's kind of like conversations, in 2001, that was really kind of thought as like kind of like just sweet and peculiar, and like, little, I always get the feeling that we were tapped on the head, like, you go do that.
Sure.
But we really believed in that. And then 9/11 happened while I was in class. Tom and I lived on Atwater and Fess, for all those Bloomington listeners, and we saw the news. I remember that morning of 9/11, we saw on the television screen it all go down. And then I then went to class, and I went to a theater and drama, I think it was a history class. The great Rakesh Solomon was teaching the class. And I kind of remember that like it was yesterday. And I remember that evening, Tom and I kind of like talking, maybe it was the next couple of days, but of how much it was so much more important now to make the theater that we wanted to make. And so, and in that senior year, we made a couple of shows that senior year. Tom did a play with a couple of friends called The Lonely Planet that happened at, I think, the Bloomington Playwrights Project. And then and then right after that, Tom and I did a show called In on It, also at the Bloomington Playwrights Project. And that was really kind of like the two kind of like beginnings of that kind of storytelling. We moved to New York City right after, and we really dedicated our lives to, making art that changed society. And that started in, that time period. So officially on paper, the company started when we moved to New York in 2002. So, but that in our minds, it started our senior year of Bloomington.
Outstanding. Yes. And thank you for sharing that on behalf of myself and the IU family. Certainly a feather in IU's cap, you and your journey and where you are now. Tony nominated actor, a writer and director in your own right. And yeah, again, it's just really great to hear from an IU alum like yourself. And I'm glad, I believe it was 2014 when you were honored here. So hopefully you can come through for another visit and hit up some
Well,
of your
you have
favorite.
done your homework, sir, because I couldn't even tell. If you said 2019, I'd be like, I think it was maybe like 2018. But yeah,
I mean,
2014.
the decade pre-pandemic is like just a blur. But
Yeah, exactly.
I wanted to know if you had any favorite B-Town restaurants.
I was a big Dagwoods fan. There was this restaurant. I don't know if it's there still. And I remember when I went with my niece graduated there, I guess in 2000, I don't really remember, 17, 18, 19. I was like, let's go to Dagwoods. And she goes, nobody goes to Dagwoods. And I was like, well, we used to.
Yeah.
So Dagwoods was a big place. The Right Food Court was a great place that I
Yeah.
always kind of hung out at. And then what was there were so many like awesome restaurants that we would go to, but Dagwoods was like a big favorite of ours.
Yeah, no, fantastic. Well, until
Mad
another
Mushroom,
visit.
is Mad Mushroom still
Mad
around?
Mushroom Pizza. Yep.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We love Mad Mushroom too.
That's OG. Very nice. Very nice. As I previously mentioned, huge fan of Succession. It's been a long, lonely, sad month since the season 3 finale aired, and without looking forward to it each week. And we're certainly looking forward to the next season. But I wanted to ask you a few questions about your role as Stewy Hosseini on the show. So many memorable scenes and lines. Do you have a favorite episode or moment featuring yourself as Stewy?
Wow. So many. I mean, he gets such delicious, things to say. I really loved the end of season 2 where Stewy and Logan and Kendall had that square off. I really loved that scene. I really loved the scene with another Logan scene, but I love the scene with Logan and Stewy where he tells him that everyone fucking hates him. I love doing that scene. I love that day. That was really kind of special for me because Mark Mylod, the director of that episode, who I don't remember actually because that was my only scene in that episode. The director of that episode got sick that morning. And so they kind of Mark Mylod, who basically directs the majority of the stuff that I'm in, came down and did that day. And the incredible Lucy Preble, one of our amazing writers, was there, and Jay Smith Cameron, who plays Jerry, and David Rashi, and Kieran, and Brian Cox. I just really remember all of us kind of really working hard to make sure that we got that scene right. And something about the process of doing that and working alongside Lucy and Mark, that just really kind of I have a really fond memory of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So without being like lame, I could probably say Sohile like every single scene that he said I love, but those are some favorite ones.
Well, true Stewy fans, know every scene like the back of their hand, and like you said it perfectly, delicious moments, and certainly the lavender sniffing and end of season 2. I read an interesting piece about the lavender there, but what a choice.
Truthfully, it was serendipitous. I mean, it was just weird. We were in Croatia. We were on this private island, and the one of our amazing props, Monica and props, and Christo, our first AD, right, because we don't rehearse very much at all. I just remember, I mean, I've said this story before, but I'll say it again quickly, is that I just remember watching Monica and Christo sniff this lavender and just getting like sucked into that. I'm like, let me grab that. And I smelled it. I was like, wow, this is amazing. And I just put it right on my plate, and they're like, action. And then all of a sudden, when Logan's speaking to me about the deal, I don't know what happened. I just looked down and I grabbed it and I smelled it. And then, listen, if I knew that sniffing lavender would be such a big deal, I would have done it 20 years ago. But it was just pure coincidence.
It was just a wonderfully perfect choice, I feel like. And, just it spoke to Stewy's calm, collected, doesn't, need anyone, however, knows, the cards that he holds. And, I just love how he asks him for money.
I just love how he asks me. Well, the other thing is there was a line there was some improvising that was done there, but I remember one time I improvised some line when Kendall's like yelling at me. I was like, I think I said something to the effect of, you are asking me for money and now you're yelling at me. Like,
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah.
you know what I mean? Or some sort of version of that. And I think that really kind of like sums up how much of a genius that Jesse Armstrong, the creator and showrunner of Succession, is that at the end of the day, Stewy, immorally, unethically, however you want to state it, is going to do the thing that will make him win. And that's what this game is. And that's that line. That's what this whole thing is, man. Like, you keep talking about all this other bullshit, but like at the end of the day, we're trying to win a game. And my side right now is winning a game a little bit better than your side is. And that's that.
And that's who he's behind. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention and acknowledge, the amazing fact that you yourself, an Iranian actor, is representing an Iranian successful businessman on screen in the way it is. It's fantastic. Thanks, I've read, you said it's not necessarily important that the audience knows he's Iranian, but what we do know, and its representation, in my opinion, at some of the highest form nonetheless. And I think that's outstanding. And one thing I wanted to touch on is your own real life relationship with Jeremy Strong, who plays Kendall Roy, kind of paralleling the relationship between Stewy and Kendall.
Well, it parallels in the fact that we've been old friends. Jeremy and we chatted a couple days ago. I just congratulated him. Did he just get nominated for a Golden Globe? What did he just get nominated for?
Screen actor. Yes, yeah.
There's so many things that he gets nominated for that I can't keep straight. I mean, the only kind of like mirroring really that's happening is that we are old friends. But Jeremy, is the hardest working actor in show business right now, that dedicates himself to really falling into the character of Kendall, and that's both admirable and I think really successful for him. And so but I have known him for a long time. I have, we have a mutual friend by the amazing Brendan Donaldson, who also went to Indiana University. And Brendan and I have been friends since, I can't remember, 1998 or 9 or something. And they became friends as well at the Steppenwolf Summer Theater Program. And so that's how I kind of met Jeremy. And so watching Jeremy grow into this, this unbelievable character, having his skill get to the level of having a Kendall Roy like this is kind of just amazing to watch.
I can only imagine, because I read that you originally were considered for the role of Lawrence. And I can only imagine the dynamic that would have played. However, I'm glad, this character became, because obviously the long lastingness falter, the baby Kendall had to kill.
The baby had to kill.
Yeah.
Poor Lawrence's vulture had to get killed like that. Yeah.
Because his dad told him to.
Be on the show. Absolutely. My dad told me to.
Yeah.
My dad told me to. Yeah.
But just any initial thoughts. How long was the process of being kind of going out for Lawrence before Stewy was born?
Good question. It was a pilot thing. So I truly, again, memory shit. I don't remember how long it took, but we definitely, I think there was a few auditions for that part. And bluntly, I basically was doing my version of Stewy, what ended up being Stewy for that part, because that's basically how I realized that kind of like hedge fund business person. Like I don't have, I jokingly, but I don't have like a bunch of like hedge fund, ideas swirling around. I kind of got this like one. And so when they called back and they wanted more of that, I kind of was really thrilled for that, because I really like a character that's calm and collected and can relax himself into trying to figure out how to make the best business moves. I kind of find that that's really kind of intoxicating. And even though he does have fear, and even though he does get scared of things, that you have to like crawl, you have to like rip that out of him. And the times that we do see that are always at the trickiest of situations. In season 3, my mom is calling me right now.
Oh,
Irene June is calling me. Should I answer? No.
please. I mean, please, it's your
You calling
mother.
again? Oh, and I'm sorry. Let me just turn off the notifications. So anyway, in season 3, another portion where we saw kind of like Stewy kind of like losing a little bit of his steam is in that, that amazing episode, which was, I think, just nominated for something. Writers Guild, maybe, that episode 6, is it? Which is basically the shareholders meeting.
Yep.
So you also see Stewy kind of being like, God, I'm stuck in a rock in a hard place. I kind of love those moments.
Well, one question I did have for you, and this is just, as a fan, is how you think of how I see, the rest of the series progress following the bear hug letter acceleration at the end of season 1. In my opinion, that kind of is the inciting incident for the rest of the series as it takes Kendall down that path, and therefore obviously the end of season 1 incident occurs. So I just think it's so cool that you were part of such a moment that catapulted the rest of the series into what we know it to be today. And from then to hugging Josh Aronson, Adrian Brody on the tarmac, every moment with Stewy is wonderful, and I certainly look forward to more next season. And a question I did have is, if you could play any other character, not that we would want you to, but if you could, anyone that you think would be particularly fun.
Oh my gosh, what part wouldn't be fun? I love Cousin Greg. I love how Nick plays it. I love Wams Gams. I love Matthew, Alan, Ruck. I mean, all of them. One time, I'm trying to remember. One time, I don't know why this happened, but at a table read, I want to say it's season 2. I don't remember. Kieran couldn't come, so I got to play Roman in the read.
Oh,
which was really fun. I love Stewy, and I love playing Stewy, and even if as I'm responding to you, I'm kind of like, who else could play Cousin Greg? Who else can play Roman?
It's,
you know what I mean?
Yes, yes.
You know what I mean? Everyone is. That's another genius of Jesse. He really writes towards us. He and his team of amazing writers, Tony and John and Lucy and Susan and on and on and on, and Will, they write towards us. Do you know what I mean? And that's really just kind of like a beautiful thing.
That's what I've read, how there's no character that they haven't considered their own individual growth and journey. And it certainly shows. And as I mentioned, my mom and I, huge fans of the show. I was wondering, if you wouldn't mind channeling Stewy for a moment, if Stewy, as we're recording a podcast, if Stewy was invited on a business podcast hosted by some NYU grad students, and he was asked one of his keys to success, how do you think he would respond?
I think he'd respond to the level of that. I think he says it. I think he would say, you have to be spiritually and emotionally and mentally behind whoever fucking wins. And so that, I think, really, that's the thing. I mean, that's how he would say. I mean, at the end of the day, the business world, in the way that Stewy sees it, is less about, it is about the specifics and making sure that everything's there, but it's also about just how to win and making sure that you just win. The thing about the bear hug letter that is really kind of unbelievable is, and I say this often, if they did win, if the bear hug letter did go over, if he didn't, go on a drunken spree and kill somebody, we would be the biggest names in the business world, literally ever. Historic levels. Books would be written. And in a way, the reason why that happened is that we did it. Like, we pushed all the way through and did it until that last moment. And so in a way, I think part of like that idea of like, I will win no matter what, is something that I think Stewy would definitely give an NYU business grad or an Indiana University grad. What's the business school called?
For that matter, yes, absolutely. The Kelly School of Business, absolutely.
Kelly, I was going to say the Kelly School of Business.
Yeah,
Kelly School of Business.
I think Stewy has certainly inspired a generation of the next class of Kelly graduates. So certainly,
and without sounding, I don't know how this is going to sound, but so much people are like, "Oh, do you know a lot of hedge funders?" And is that what you
right?
I said, no, but I can imagine a lot of frat boys, and that's because at Indiana University we have tons of them, and they all go to the Kelly School of Business. All I have to imagine is one of those guys that we all hang out with because you have to in classes and at sports games or whatever, succeeding and going all the way through. So a lot of Stewy comes from, the fraternity system outside of Indiana University.
How great to have the wisdom of my son's college drinking buddy in the room.
Exactly. Except for them, they went to wherever they went to.
Arian, one thing I wanted to also acknowledge and let everyone know is at least how I see it, and many others see it, is that you not only are an artist yourself, but you're a fan of other artists. You sing the praises of other people's work constantly. I see it, everyone sees it, and I just want to acknowledge that. And that, in my opinion, is another reason you are beloved in their community. And I just wanted to take it back for a moment, if you wouldn't mind. Where and when would you say your love of performing began?
It's such a, I grew up in Iran and then lived in Dubai, and then we moved to Chicago, and trauma was around there. Iran was, there was a revolution in the midst. My brother was fighting in the Iran-Iraq War. My cousin died in that war. Dubai, we were kind of like outsiders trying to like live there. Chicago, we were really outsiders. My parents don't speak a lot of English. And so I feel there's two things and the reason I'm bringing that up is because I feel one of the tools that I had at my disposal was, and this is out of necessity, and my parents are amazing human beings, but oftentimes because they were working so much, they kind of like stick me in front of a TV. And at that time period, we didn't have cable or anything like that, but we had like all of those. There was a station in Chicago called WGN, which is kind of like national now. And I would watch sports there, and I'd watch I Love Lucy, and I'd watch Three's Company with my parents, and we would all laugh. And I kind of figured out, like, I can do that. So subconsciously, maybe some of the reasons why I was doing this, and this is a 41-year-old man talking about what 7 or 8 or 9-year-old boy was, I found that those moments of levity and comedy really uplifted our family. And I felt like if I can like mimic that in some sort of way, maybe that could work. So that was one portion of it. And also, I learned English on Sesame Street and Mr. Rogers, and so I have a very romantic view of what all that is. And Jim Henson is legitimately one of my idols. And also I say this as well, is that, in Iran at the time, you weren't getting the first string movies like a week later, like you can do now in a weird way. Not that Iran can get that. You were basically watching the movies that happened like 20 years ago. So I grew up watching Hitchcock, Charlie Chaplin, It's a Mad, 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 Mad World. I watched those kind of like crazy 60s, 70s, 50s kind of shows, and those kind of like informed me in a way that I think was helpful. Again, I'm what do you call it? I'm Monday morning quarterbacking slightly, because I don't really know how it all happened, but that was a big portion of it. And again, this is a 41-year-old man talking about a kid, but I wasn't I was in ESL classes till 4th grade. It was embarrassing and hard to be an outsider. It was hard to not be a great reader. And so comedy came real quick. And I thought I could do it, and I did it, and I kept on going with it. And then blessings to this, north suburb of Chicago that I lived in, which was called unincorporated Northbrook, which is borders Northbrook and Glenview. They had such resources for the arts. unlike the rest of the country. And that was a big portion of it. So I think those are the things that kind of like led to this, stew of what, no pun intended, this stew of Arian Moayed, this Hormus Sabzi of Arian Moayed.
It's wonderful. No, the comedy, the universality of it, it all adds up. It makes sense to us, and certainly we're all, we're lucky that it all came this way.
And also, you finish. Sorry.
No, so I was going to say, I myself, my Afghan parents, immigrating to the U.S. Three's Company was such a gateway to them understanding American culture, and myself also watching it, classic.
Yeah, Three's Company was Jack, the amazing John Ritter and his pratfalls and his, old Commedia dell'arte, kind of like mistaken identity and, oh, so sorry, I didn't know, and misunderstandings and all those conflicts, like those things were so funny and still are funny to me. And that was a little bit of the training of those days. And also, I just want to say, and you would understand this as well, and I think a lot of immigrants understand this, but specifically from maybe Iran, Afghanistan, and that whole region, is that there was so much turmoil and insanity growing up. Afghan, I can't even imagine. Iranian was really tough in the 80s and 90s, that we all of a sudden had, and I lived in an immigrant community. And so like empathizing with everyone else's struggles, wasn't that difficult. Not that it was that we didn't need, but like we had these neighbors that were from Taiwan, and they were such great people, but they were going through some shit back home. Do you know what I mean? And so we would hear about that, and we'd be like, oh, that's so, I didn't know anything about that, And so that type of empathy building, again, this is an adult talking about a kid, was inherent in our lifestyle because we kind of had to, because everyone was going through some crazy ass shit,
until you speak to someone from a different ethnic group and you go, wait a minute, that's very similar to what we've been going through, and the instant connection. Exactly the same. Certainly. Yeah. So,
and we all had parents that spoke very little English, and we all had parents that had numerous jobs, and we all had parents that had to work all day Saturday where I had to stay at home all day. You know what I mean? Like we all had someone like that. And that I really do believe helped with my acting skills, because it's not hard for me to be like, oh, for many people, other, being an other is like just peculiar and weird and like I don't know anything about it. But for us, or and I think Iranians and I probably will say Afghans as well, like we are very curious people wanting to know more and more and more. So I think that adds a little bit to the performing portion of it all.
I wanted to ask you, in addition to your brilliant performing on screen, on stage, you're a writer and director in your own right. And I wanted to know, from your years of working with the many talented directors yourself, if there are any qualities that you picked up, anything you picked up from, for example, Jon Stewart working on Rosewater, that you apply in your own creations.
I'm going to give a very simplistic answer to your question, because I think I just want to demystify it for anyone that's interested in these things. I took 1 or 2 directing classes in college. We moved to the city. Tom and I started this company, knew no directors, so we directed them. And then we didn't know any writers, so we wrote them. And then we didn't know, and we didn't know any actors, so we called our Indiana University friends. And so basically, I say this to say that I was never like trained I've never taken a writing class in my life. I was never trained. And because at a very young age, I've tasted so much of what the top of our industry is. At 26, I was doing a pilot for Spike Lee, Tom Fontana, who created Oz and Homicide, and has City on the Hill right now. And Barry Levinson was our director, another great director. So, and when you go into a room at 26 with these 3 phenoms, and you realize that they too don't have all of the answers. They just have their experience and their skills. It starts demystifying it for you that there's someone out there that has all the answers. And so in a way,
right,
you know, I don't need to like put anyone on a pedestal. You mentioned Jon Stewart. Jon Stewart's directorial debut was Rosewater. And I'm sure if you were to talk to John, I know for a fact, he would say, I made this mistake, I made this mistake. I mean, you know, it's part of what this is. And so that ability to just kind of push ahead when you don't know the answers is the thing to learn from those greats, is that nobody has there's not one person on earth that can tell you what the next scene should be or how it should be done or there's nothing. Nobody knows. Everyone's, no offense, bullshitting until they, you know, but the question is how much of that bullshit comes from their own lived in natural experience to kind of like move ahead. And that, you know, that old Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hour rule is something that I take very, very seriously. And so with regards, and I'm an actor. And I know when I'm on set and I hate fucking being on. Can I swear on this? Probably.
Yes, of course.
But you know, being on, you know, I know full well that like when you're on set and when it sucks, it's because this is happening to an actor, and this is happening, and this is it. And I don't deal with that. I try not to. I remove that from our sets, you know, as a writer, director, producer. And then also on top of that as well is that I grew up in a theater company, and that was Waterwell, that we created, and our egos kind of had to be put aside slightly because the show was at 8:00 and the best idea is still not out there. Do you know what I mean? Kind of.
Yes.
And so like a little bit of it is just kind of like, I'm on set and I don't have to have all of the answers. You know what I mean? I have to make the final decision for better or for worse, but I don't have to have all the answers. And so I say this in Waterwell, I say this on set, I say this when creating new things. It doesn't have to be my idea. It does not have to be your idea, but it does have to be the best idea. And that kind of mentality on set really leads to, in my opinion, great work.
As informed as it can be, and that speaks to, as you said earlier, your curiosity, always learning, and certainly something that I think my class, my contemporaries who are graduating with their BFAs and MFAs now can certainly learn from. So, and that's wonderful.
I think, and that's also experience. You know, it's just life. A little bit of getting older, knowing, you know, Waterwell is a civic-minded, socially conscious company since 2002, right? Right now, in the last 2 years, since the murder of George Floyd, I feel, and rightfully so, and thank God, there is so many companies on the artistic side, on the business side, that are trying to like dive into all that. Right. And because we've been doing it for 20 years, we are now noticing some of the mistakes, not mistakes, but some of the early learning steps are happening to these younger companies that we did 10, 15, 16 years ago. That's not because we're better than them. It's because we've just done it a little bit more than they have. It's not because like they have all the answers. And we're also learning from the younger companies as well. You know what I mean? Like certainly. A lot of it is just like time and energy and just getting it wrong.
But yeah, until you have those data points behind you, or you're only as informed as you've seen, like you said, the experience. And I think, I just think it's us to, keep mentioning how, I think you're a product of many things, including, but not limited to, Indiana University and the connections and the group that you made here. And I think that's so inspiring, truly. Yeah.
I mean, our first show Tom and I did was called Lost in Yemen. This was it was November of 2002, 2 Indiana U grads. Our second show was Fuente Ovahuna, which was which we performed at the Duplex Cabaret Theater. This was in, I want to say, April and May of 2003. And that was myself, Tom Ridgely, Happy Anderson, Nicole Parker, Lauren Kreger. All 5 of us graduated from Indiana University. all five of which are my near and dear friends, and all five of which we still kind of like work and communicate with each other. So the first Waterwell real big show was 5 Indiana University grads. Even the person that made our costumes was an Indiana. I'm sorry. No, even the person that made our, right? Help me. No, the person that made our graphic design, there was no set. Our graphic design was an Indiana University grad. So yeah, it was really kind of, that's all we knew. We didn't know it. We don't have, and also Indiana University, for all of its pluses, doesn't have a really like robust Indiana University like alumni association in New York. So all we knew were the references of our friends and family, and so that's kind of how we kind of like pushed forward.
Absolutely. No, I think it speaks to, curating your group, maintaining those connections, but also paving your own path as you all did. Now, Arian, I must ask you, because I just saw earlier this week on your Instagram story that you were invited to a virtual screening of Iranian filmmaker Asghar Farhadi's latest film, A Hero. And my family and I were huge fans of his, and we're really looking forward to seeing this film this weekend once it's available. But just want to get any of your initial thoughts as a fellow fan.
I'm a massive believer that the Iranian cinema movement of the last, I would say, 40 years is some of the greatest films on earth. And the torch has been handed down from Kiarostami and Nahm Albof and given to the great Asghar Farhadi. And I cannot wait for the world to watch A Hero, because it talks about the complexity of what we live in a culture, both Western and Eastern, of what is truth. The question of who is the hero is very, very exciting.
Kahraman.
And Kahraman, exactly. And it's the second time, to be honest, it was the second time I've seen the movie. I ended up going on opening night just because I'm a huge fan.
Wonderful.
And went with a bunch of Iranians as well, including Nuisha Noor and Azad Jafarian and Yara and Jui. We all kind of went and watched the movie together, and it was just so spectacular watching that on the big screen. I think Iranians are going to be super proud of it.
That's fantastic.
I think the world is going to be proud of it. I think it's going to get nominated for an Oscar, and I think it should win. Saying it here, mic drop.
Right here, predictions are in. Let's have it. Yes, no, thank you. I just saw that, so I was like, I have to ask him about it, because we were trying to watch it last week, and I was like, oh, it's available starting the 21st. Okay, well, we're gonna get on that. Last weekend, last weekend we did a little Asghar Farhadi marathon and did Fireworks Wednesday, About Ali, and A Separation all in one night. They're outstanding.
Yeah. About Ellie, my friend Azad was a co-writer on that one. That's a great film, and so is and obviously A Separation is a masterpiece. Separation is genuinely considered, in my mind, how a perfect drama should be laid out. Just when you think another thing is going to happen, all of a sudden the stakes go right through the roof. And I use that movie in Iranian cinema in a lot of my own work. The Accidental Wolf, this series that I created and was just acquired by Topic, and season 2 is just out on Amazon Prime and everywhere else. A lot of that movie is very Iranian to me, and very much trying to feel what Kiarostami was trying to do, just stealing from the greatest filmmakers in the world while telling a noir thriller from the 70s. So
that's beyond subverting expectations, and that's outstanding to see the inspiration into your own work as well.
I feel that being Iranian even though on the outside, whatever it may feel or look like, being Iranian is how I kind of go around the world every day, and something that I'm incredibly proud of, and genuinely hope that more of society can understand the kindness and the thinking of others and helping one another that the Iranian and Afghan community put out into the world.
Absolutely. And speaking of another one of your performances, yourself, an Iranian actor, on what was probably the biggest audience of the last year, Spider-Man No Way Home.
For a brief second, I was like, what is he going to say? But Spider-Man, yes, I'm in Spider-Man.
And this, you know, as a huge fan of, you know, the series myself, you know, I wanted to know, what do you think back to favorite moments working on John Watts's blockbuster as Agent Cleary, whom I was thrilled to see you within the first 10 minutes of the film.
Yeah. Wow. You know, what's amazing about doing that, again, very, very lucky to say this out loud, is that, you know, and this is a very Iranian, I don't know if it's Afghan, it probably is mentality, but like, I'm surrounded by people that are like way great, maybe even better than me.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
You're too humble.
No, but it's true. And being surrounded by Tom Holland, doing scenes with him every day, was really exciting and really fun. And also John, you know, John was making an indie movie in a weird way. I didn't feel like I was on a Marvel set. I didn't feel, you know, my scenes are in like, you know, the grungy, you know, police station, or the grungy, you know, the house or whatever. So I wasn't like flying, you know, all over or anything like that. So to me, having John there and kind of like really kind of like giving a place for me to kind of like do my thing was really kind of exciting. I think even though it was probably like maybe like 6 or 7 or 8 days of shooting total, it was just an incredible experience to have someone as great as John to kind of be like, do your fucking thing, you know, like, and that was cool. That was really, really cool.
Yeah, you say, you know, it felt like an indie film. I read, you know, he was really making his era of, you know, a John Hughes coming of age, you know, teenage movie. So it did come across that way too. And, you know, you give us a hilarious exchange with Jacob Batalon's Ned, which, you know, had us in stitches within the first, you know, 15 minutes of the film.
That was fun. We broke each other up a ton because there was a lot of improvising that was happening in that scene, and John would throw things like, say this now, and I'd say this, and we'd get alts or whatever. So doing the scenes with Jacob was just super fantastic and fun and easy. And then doing scenes with Zendaya and Marissa, like those were more serious and had like a little, you know, so I got to like explore a bunch of different things there. And I'm just glad that all of it made it, you know.
So more of Agent Cleary in the MCU, inshallah.
Inshallah.
And, you know, Arian, I thank you for your time this morning, and it's been outstanding to speak with you. I wanted to ask you something I ask, you know, all my guests is, you know, who or what continues to inspire you today?
You know, people fighting truth to power. People taking unbelievable circumstances that feel impossible and fighting through them. Great art, great music. Human beings that really try to like put themselves out there for other people is an inspiration to me. And I think in a time where we are so anti this or pro that, I love seeing people, you know, fight for what they believe in. I found that the Black Lives Matter movement was unbelievably inspiring to me. I feel, you know, that's kind of the vibe. Those are the things that inspire me. You know, we have a massive global climate crisis, and this young girl of Greta coming out there, kind of like putting herself out there, inspires me. You know, Malala inspires me. Yeah, I mean, people, you know, it's funny because I didn't come from a pedigree of people in the arts or people that have a successful business people or whatnot. And whenever I see someone do something that's outside of the norm, or they put up their own play because no one else was doing it, that's an inspiration to me, because the amount of risks and no's and obstacles and roadblocks and people telling you you're an idiot or you're wrong or no one does it that way is more than people can even imagine when you're putting yourselves out there. And whenever I see someone like yourself doing a podcast from what seems to be the fanciest dorm apartment I've ever seen in the history of time, to me, you doing this, reaching out to me, calling us up, and persisting and making sure that this happens is an inspiration to me. So,
whether it's fighting for a cause, fighting for what you believe in, fighting for your talent to be represented on screen, as you have, Arian, it's all inspiring to me, and I really do appreciate getting to meet you and share this conversation with the world. I encourage everyone watching, listening, please support Arian John and his efforts and his arts. You will not be disappointed. Arian, thank you so much again for your time.
Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you asking, and I'm glad to be speaking to a fellow, Iranian, Afghan, and also Indiana University grad.
Go Hoosiers, my brother.
Let's
appreciate
go,
you. And until next time.
All right, cool.
Real quick, before you click away, thanks so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. Click right here to subscribe to my channel for all future videos, and click right here to check out this video over here. Have a great one.